Nemo Radio is on the air.
A, B, C. A, always, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Hey, it's John Nemo. Welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. I knew I had to hit record because I just got off the scariest sales call ever. I literally wanted to use the Will Ferrell line from Elf where he says, "You're an angry elf." There's so many lessons to unpack here from a pricing perspective, a lead generation perspective, a sales perspective, a people perspective. And the long story short of this call was literally within 7 minutes, I knew that this person would be a nightmare client to work with. The reason being, now let me set all this up. So basically the way that my sales funnel works, my lead generation funnel works, and what I really encourage clients to do is before someone gets on a one-on-one sales call with me, and obviously what I'm selling in this case is done for you LinkedIn lead generation services, I want them to go through as much content as possible. I also want them to be what my business coach, John Michael Morgan, says. He calls it brand indoctrination, indoctrinated to my personal brand, my company, my approach, my personality. And that's why I love content. If you can put someone through content before they do a sales call with you, two things happen. One is if you do your content well, it demonstrates expertise. It shows how you solve problems. You have client testimonials, case studies, whatever it might be, right? And you show your secret sauce. You show how and why your service works or your product works, the problems it solves, who it's for, all that. The content does a good job demonstrating everything. And then also, if you put your personality into the content, then the prospect gets to know, like, and trust you as a person. What do you like? Are you funny? Are you happy? Are you an introvert, an extrovert? Are you a goofball? Who are you? What would it be like? Because that's the key piece of this. And that's where this call really went bad, was the emotional connection. At the end of the day, no matter what, even if you're buying from a company and not a person individually, there is an emotional vibe. There is a connection, a feeling attached to the transaction. And so what I try to do with my sales funnel and everything is put out as much free content as I can that's valuable. So ebooks, templates, videos, walkthrough videos, case studies, demos, whatever. And so in this particular case, this was a small business owner that I found on LinkedIn, right? I used my own approach, said, "Hey, are you looking for any tips on how to get leads on LinkedIn? If so, I have a free ebook, LinkedIn lead generation for small business owners." Person said, "Sure." Sent him the ebook, then said, "Hey, if you find that helpful, if that's interesting, would you also like to see a walkthrough video of the exact approach we take for small business owners on LinkedIn?" Person said, "Sure, send it over." So again, I've sent an ebook, which in theory, if they read it, is my whole backstory, my hero's journey, where I came from, how I started, and then more specifically, how I help small business owners on LinkedIn, proven tips and templates and tactics and strategies they can go and apply and get wins from. And then the second piece, this video really walks through our done for you LinkedIn lead generation service, but it's not just a sales video. It's literally like, hey, here are examples of small business owners we work with. Here's how we shaped their profile. Here's why we did their profile the way we did. Here's how we made this business owner stand out as unique, different, and better. Here are, examples of the messages we wrote for these small business owners. Here's why I wrote these messages the way I did. See how it does X, Y, Z. Here's how we built these lists of prospects for these types of small businesses. Here's how we tracked every conversation. Here's how we tracked every lead. Here's how we do our follow-up. If this resonates, if this is what you're looking for, then, feel free to book a call and we can learn more. And actually, before we book a call, I should back up. I have one last step where I say, if this looks like something that resonates, I'd be happy to chat with you. The first step is learning more about your situation. And then I send them to an online form, a type form. And that's my kind of last area of qualifying someone before I get on a call with them live. And that's where they're going to say, like, here's who I am, here's my business, here's my target audience, here's my business model, here's what I'm doing in terms of revenue, here are my goals, here are my pain points. And it's a pretty detailed form. It probably takes most people 10 minutes to fill out. But what I found is for me too, with, done for you LinkedIn lead generation, having an agency, is you really win or lose based on client selection. And so you want to make it such that you really do a good job with vetting potential clients. And I think I still see this a lot on LinkedIn. I used to suffer from it myself, really this scarcity mindset of literally, I'll talk to anyone, anytime, no hoops to jump through. My calendar link is plastered everywhere. Book time with me whenever you want. I'm here, I'm open. I used to be that way. And I tell this story of how I used to drive across town to do coffee meetings across the Twin Cities where I live, 45 minutes each way, just because someone wanted to meet for coffee, and maybe it'll turn into a prospect and maybe it'll be a lead. And what I really learned is your time is so valuable and your time is so finite. And the 90 minutes I spent driving back and forth across town and the hour coffee meeting, only to find out the person wasn't ready, wasn't qualified, didn't have money, was a total waste of time. And so I swore off coffee meetings forever. And in fact, I recently got a message from someone on LinkedIn who's local in the Twin Cities and said, hey, I really like what you do on LinkedIn. I followed you for a while. I'd love just to hook up and have a beer or grab coffee and talk shop. What do you say? And I was like, no. And it's not in a rude or dismissive way, but just understanding your time is so finite and valuable. And for me too, like, how do you want to prioritize, right? So my work is really based around family. Like I quit my day job in 2012 so that I could stop missing my boys' childhood. At the time, how old were they? They were 9, 7, and 5. They were even younger, I think. Gosh, I don't know. They were babies. They were all under the age of 10, 3 boys. I worked a 9-to-5 job, commuted, and I quit that because I wanted to build a work around family time and not the other way around. So I also in 2012 was like, I don't want to drive all over town. I don't want to go to trade shows and all this. So I literally started working from home, remotely back then, right? Doing Skype. If you remember, Skype was the precursor to Zoom and all that stuff and Google Meet. And so anyway, long story short, I don't do coffee meetings and networking meetings and all that unless it's a special occasion where they're basically, actually I would never do it. I do everything online. I do everything over Zoom because then I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to get dressed up, right? I just put on a baseball hat and a t-shirt and do a deal. And so anyway, back to the whole point of this is really qualifying leads and being selective of how you let people access you, how you let people get to your time. Because there's a branding piece here as well, especially if you're a coach, a consultant, a small business owner, selling a product or service. If you're willing to meet with anyone and everyone and your calendar's wide open anytime and there's no qualifying, a couple of things happen. One is people look at you and go, well, if you're not busy and you have a wide open calendar day after day after day, you must not be successful. You must not have any clients. You must not have anything to do with your business where you need to run stuff, right? The fact that your calendar is wide open all day, every day, unless you make it abundantly clear, and the reason is I'm in the sales chair and all I do is talk to prospects all day and the rest of my company's run and we're big and successful, people are going to look at it and go, wow, you must be struggling. That's part one. And two is the other perspective people have is your time must not be very valuable. Because if your calendar's wide open and there's no gate to go through to book time with you, you must not value your time and you must not really have a lot of insight and value that you bring to people. Can you imagine take some iconic brands, what if Tony Robbins just had his Calendly link and you could book 30 minutes with Tony Robbins just to chat whenever you want? Right? The world's most famous business coach. Of course not, right? You know how many rounds of applications you'd have to go through, and that's kind of the idea and the branding is you want people to feel like they have to do a little legwork to work with you. I mean, I think of someone I followed a lot early on when I started my business, Gary Vaynerchuk, famous, internet entrepreneur and business owner and very successful, personality online. You don't just get to book time with Gary V, right? Even though he does a lot of free stuff and things, he does it in a way where he's using the content to grow his brand. He might do something like Surprise and Delight, or he might do a free Q&A, but he's recording it, transcribing it, turning it into a blog post, an audiobook, an ebook, a YouTube video, a marketing email. He's strategic about it. So if you do want to give your time away for free, think about that. Instead of giving it away one-to-one and driving all over doing coffee meetings or one-on-one Zooms, do a live Q&A. And if someone says, I'd love to meet and pick your brain, say, great, once a month, I do like an open session, a hangout, and here's the date and time. Anyone who wants to come is welcome. Pick my brain. I'll share some value, and then I repurpose that, and I use it as a podcast episode, a Q&A on my website, an ebook, right? Be strategic about that. If you're ever giving anything away, repurpose it. So, for example, I used to do Noon with Nemo. Every Friday, I'd go live from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., the lunch hour, noon. And I would always present and teach and train on a different topic, and random people would show up. And sometimes I'd have a product or a service to offer, like an online course or something. Sometimes I wouldn't, but I always repurposed it. It turned into an email, a blog post, a podcast episode, a YouTube video, a LinkedIn article, a LinkedIn status update, a LinkedIn video. I'd slice all that content up and reuse it. And so the whole point of this, getting back to the sales funnel, is the more free content you can put out, and the more people go through your content, the more they get indoctrinated to your brand. They know, like, and trust you at an emotional level. They see you, they feel comfortable about it. And what was interesting on this particular call, getting back to the whole reason I'm doing this episode, was this person came on and immediately looked angry. It's like, oh, he looks really mad. And he was on there and the arms were crossed and just very gruff and blunt. And, I tried to do my Dale Carnegie and kind of, I tried to start by saying, hey, I love your business model. I'm familiar with your business model. I've worked with people who have done similar things. I get it. It makes a lot of sense. And then immediately the person was kind of saying, no, you don't get it. Like, tell me this. And I bet it was this type of people. I bet it was that. And it was very argumentative and kind of fighting, right? And was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't get it, And then I said, well, tell me about, your experience with LinkedIn and lead generation and all that. And then the person just complained for 5 minutes about how bad it is and how everyone on LinkedIn is, a shyster and a salesperson and pushy and spammy, and they're all idiots and none of it works. And, I've used these different agencies and it's all been a huge failure. And I'm so upset and mad. And I just, and then they stopped and I'm like, oh, okay. And I went to Dale Carnegie and I was like, okay, well, it certainly sounds like, and this is also Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, great book, labeling. Like, it sounds like what I'm hearing is you've had some very negative experiences on LinkedIn. So I'm kind of validating what he's saying. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, well, I don't want to add to that. So, the reason I sent you the ebook and the video ahead of time was, I wanted you to see if what I do is unique, different, and better enough, and is contrasts enough with your previous agencies and vendors, where you might say, oh, you know what? I do want to talk to this guy because that's a totally different approach than what I've done in the past. Maybe he's worth working with, right? And I said, but I'm not hearing you say that. Like, it doesn't, I didn't want to go like, did you even read the book or look at the video? Like, he was just really angry. And he's like, well, I can tell you right now, you can be the greatest in the world and do this and this and this, but it's not going to work because of these reasons. And he kept just seeing why it's not going to work. And he's very angry. And it was very clear to me of understanding what my business coach has drilled into my head from day one, which is you will win or lose based on client selection. And you have to pay attention to these red flags. No matter how desperate you are, no matter how dry your sales pipeline is, no matter how much you need the money. And believe me, I've been in those positions. I've had that scarcity mindset. And every single time I've kind of ignored all the red flags to take on a client just to try to get some money. It's been an absolute nightmare. It's been an absolute nightmare. Like, there's never been one case where I took on a bad client because I needed the money and felt great about it after. Inevitably, what happens is, guess what? They're a terrible client. They either, fight you tooth and nail, or they stress your team out, or they just cause all this chaos inside your agency and it costs you more time and money and emotional energy to fix. Or they, complain about your service and try to refund or argue about paying you, or try to nickel and dime you and not pay you what you agreed to. Like, there's all these reasons they're the worst clients ever, right? And there's a great quote from Alex Hormozzi, right, the entrepreneur. He says, when you decrease price, you decrease, if you're trying to win them on price, right? He says, if you decrease price, you decrease your client's emotional investment because it didn't cost them much. You decrease your client's perceived value of your service, since it can't be that good since it's so cheap or priced just like everyone else. You decrease your client's results because they don't value your service. They're not invested. And he says, most important, you attract the worst clients. They're never satisfied until your service is free. And so immediately I knew with this guy, and again, I'm doing this in real time and going, he's super angry. He's been burned a million times before. Everything I'm saying to him, he's just swatting back at me, like telling me why it won't work. And I'm going, would I really want to work with this guy? He's got so much baggage coming into a relationship with me. He's going to need a Sherpa to haul it up Mount Everest, right? Like, he's got so much baggage. And then I pulled out a story I often use, because I don't always immediately reject someone just because they've had bad experiences with LinkedIn or with other vendors or other lead generation efforts. I pull out a story that's very true for me, and I say, listen, years ago, I spent over almost $50,000 on Facebook ads when I had no money. I put it all on a credit card with high interest rates. It was actually $45,000. I used 3 different Facebook ad agencies. I spent all this money on the creative and all this money on the ads, and I got 0 sales. I was trying to sell online courses, and it was an epic, colossal failure. And I mean, that was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. To this day, if someone tries to pitch me on Facebook ads, I go into the fetal position, right? Or I get angry and I'm like, I'm never doing them. They'll never work, right? Because I knew I just have too much baggage, right? So it's like, I told the guy the story and he didn't seem moved at all. I was like, oh, okay. Well, usually when I tell that story, people are like, oh, good. You empathize, you get it. You've been in my shoes, right? Because again, I've been in that situation as a business owner where I've had tons of debt and I've maxed out my credit card trying a last ditch effort and it failed. And I felt like a fool and an idiot and thought, why would I ever do this again? So I know that mindset. But what really happened is, you can try all those things. And if the person is still, this guy still was angry and everything's not working, that's when you just need to have an abundance mindset. And for me, I know, the way I've shifted my business model for this year, at least, is I'm doing everything personally for clients. So it's not a hyper scalable business in the sense of, since you get John Nemo rewriting your profile, writing your ebook, writing your LinkedIn messages, John Nemo personally doing your LinkedIn lead generation strategy, meeting personally with John Nemo, it's not hyper scalable, right? I can't do this for 1,000 clients, right? It's probably 20, 30, 40, maybe, right? So, but the trade-off is I get to pick the client. I'm going to work with you personally and I can price accordingly, right? Since you're getting me, you're getting all my expertise, all my experience, all my success, all my knowledge on, it's kind of like the way I say to clients is the way my business model is if you wanted a ghostwriter for your book, you could get someone on Fiverr or you could try to hire Stephen King or John Grisham, right? So I'm trying to position myself saying, if you want someone to personally do your LinkedIn strategy, your profile, your messaging, your content, you can hire a random agency, you can hire people off Fiverr, or you can hire me, right? And if I've done a good enough job building my brand, and if you've been indoctrinated to my brand, my backstory, oh, okay, I've read his books and he's featured in the New York Times and he's been featured in Inc. magazine. And he's had all these clients to get 5 and 6-figure sales and all these testimonials. And I've had this proven track record. So you go, yeah, he's really good at it. If I can get him to personally do it, how exciting, right? So anyway, with this guy, I basically said hey, I don't want to waste your time. I really don't feel like you'd be a good fit for us as a client. Certainly it seems like you've had a lot of negative experiences. I don't feel like, what you're expressing to me makes you feel any differently, that working with me would be different. You're kind of just telling me it's the same old thing. And then he got mad. He got even madder. And he's just like, well, I don't get that. How can you say 7 minutes into a call that you don't think I'm a good fit and not a good client for you, right? Because I'm at this point saying, I don't want to work with you. And I just said, this is probably not the best approach, but I basically just said, well, listen, I said, we're all emotional creatures. We buy based on emotion. We have to have a good connection and a vibe to someone we're working with. And I said, for me, since I personally work with every single client, I have to feel like you'd be a lot of fun to work with. And I said, the countenance, the vibe you're giving off on this call with me right now is you seem very angry. You seem very skeptical. And I'll just be straight with you. I don't think you'd be fun to work with. And I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work with people like that. And I kind of did a little too frontal probably, but I just said, life is short. I want to work with people that I have fun with and that I get along with well. And I don't think we would be a good fit. So I don't want to waste the next 50 minutes trying to lie to you. And he's just like, wow, I don't know how you can do that. And you've already wasted my time. And I'm like, exactly. So hang up, let's move on, and I jumped through all these hoops to be on your call. And I was like, well, you chose to do that. You chose to fill out the type form. You chose to, watch my videos, but yet you came in saying they won't work. So it's like you kind of disqualified yourself anyway. So it's just an interesting study, understanding really having an abundance mindset. And for me, knowing what my goals are for my agency and finances and everything else, I don't need everyone to be a client. Like for me, I've set a goal of I want to have, one new client a week, one new done for you client a week. I want to have 50 clients this year at a certain price point. And then that will help me hit the goals that I want to have. That will give my team enough work that does do the LinkedIn implementation and all the managing the projects. And that's enough bandwidth for me, one new person a week, where I can write a LinkedIn profile, an ebook, all strategy, all that. It's not overwhelming. It's not 10 people a day. And it's been really good for me. And so then I can have that abundance mindset and go, well, I only need 50 people. There's literally 1 billion members on LinkedIn, and I just need 50 of them to want to work with me. And the 50 that are going to want to work with me are people that have been through my free content, indoctrinated to my brand, know, like, and trust me before we ever get on a live call. And so when we get on a live call, they're going to be the type that say, and this is a call I had yesterday with a prospect who's probably going to turn into a done for you client. He said, I'm really excited because I've read your books. I've watched your videos. Now I'm talking to you. I love your approach. It really resonates. It's different than everything else I've tried. It's different than the other agencies I've talked to. I really like what you're saying. I feel like it would work for me. What are the next steps? I'm like, that's a client for me, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to let your content be that currency that not only buys people's time and attention and interest up front, but then also lays the groundwork for the sales call. That's why I'm a big fan. And I've learned this too the hard way of not just jumping on a call with anyone without context, without them going through content, without them jumping through hoops. For example, I've had multiple times where someone is a referral. Hey, so-and-so said you're the LinkedIn guru. I'd love to talk to you. And then I'm like, oh, well, I know that person. They're a client or whatever. And okay, sure, I'll jump on the phone with you. Those deals never close. Or I would say 99% of the time, those calls don't close because even though I'm a referral and so said I'm a guru, the person hopping on the phone with me doesn't know, like, or trust me, hasn't been through any content, hasn't read the book, hasn't watched the videos. They just heard from a friend, I'm the LinkedIn guy. And then I have to spend that whole call doing all that heavy lifting, educating them, telling them my backstory, demonstrating expertise, showing them I know what I'm doing, walking through case studies, demoing how we do everything, as opposed to putting them through a pre-done funnel of pre-done content that does all that for me and then has them fill out a type form, which, by the way, also tells me how urgent is this for you? How big of a pain point? Have you worked with other agencies? Yes or no? Are you still doing that? All these key things where I have this position of authority and can basically say, like, listen, I don't work with everybody, right? So I win or lose based on client selection. Why would you be a great client for me? And it's a great place to get to. It's hard. It's hard to have that mindset, especially if you're struggling or finances aren't where you want them to be or revenues aren't. It's always tempting to say, man, if someone wants to talk to me, I'm just going to hop on the phone and take it from there. But what I have found is that method, that approach, you get a lot of tire kickers. You get a lot of unqualified people. You get a lot of random people. You get a lot of I want to pick your brain people. And you get a lot of people that aren't ready and aren't serious and don't know, like, or trust you. So what that means is then you have to do multiple calls and chase, and more meetings to try to hopefully eventually close a deal. Whereas if they go through all your content up front, books, videos, type forms, emails, and they just have been in your little orbit for a week, a month, whatever it is, when they get to the call, they're primed, they're ready. There's so much less legwork for you to do. So all that said, I just knew I had to record because that was a bonkers call. And I almost did say you're an angry elf. And again, I didn't handle it perfectly. It's probably never good to call someone out and say, like, you seem really mad and I don't want to work with you because you wouldn't be fun. But that was a reality of it. And, next time I will probably just find a better way to say, I don't think we're a good fit. I don't think I can meet your needs. And I just want to respectfully say that. And that's what I'll do next time. But anyway, hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you got some good takeaways from it. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Appreciate you so much. And we will see you soon on another episode of Nemo Radio.